The series begins with a young man named Jin Subei standing alone and lamenting his luck. Suddenly, two men knock on his door in the middle of the night, demanding that he come down to face them and pay off his debts. However, he ignores them and tries to escape. When they chase after him, he runs into the set of a Korean drama. They attempt to follow him, but the site security prevents them from entering, informing them that access is prohibited because filming is in progress. Inside the filming site, Jin-soo asks a girl working there why they are shooting in that area, but she ignores him, doesn't respond. He is stunned when he sees famous actors in front of him. When he tries to approach them, the girl stands in his way and stops him, so he has to leave. He then recalls one of the con men who caused his bankruptcy. This con man had told him that if he invested a certain amount of money with him, he would be able to relax for the rest of his life, wouldn't have to work every day, as he would earn huge profits. Jin-soo continues his story, explaining that he took out a loan from the bank, turned to loan sharks to invest his money with the con man. However, the con man disappeared along with his money, leaving Jin-soo at the mercy of the loan sharks who were chasing him for their money with interest. He says that he then tried his luck with the lottery, despite the slim chances of winning, and also dabbled in stock market speculation, but failed at both. He continued to suffer losses and accrue debts. Consequently, he worked in grocery stores and ate expired food to save money to pay off his debts, but failed as usual. Thus, he turned to dangerous jobs that could earn him more money, even cleaning skyscraper windows, but he still couldn't gather enough money. Because of this, Jin-soo decides to commit suicide. Just before he throws himself into the river to drown and rid himself of his debts, he receives a message on his phone. He opens the phone and is surprised to see that someone has deposited 1,000,000 won into his account, telling him that they want to buy the time he decided to give up by committing suicide. Jin-soo looks around to see if anyone is watching him, but the person sending the messages instructs him to get into the white car that will stop in front of him if he's interested in the offer. Jin-soo gets into the car and tries to talk to the driver, but he doesn't respond. After a while, the car stops in front of a strange building. Jin-soo gets out of the car and enters the building, finding a table with 8 numbers and a set of envelopes. When he opens one of the envelopes and reads the contents, he learns that he is to enter a program called the 8 program. All he has to do in this program is to spend a certain number of days in the building where the competition is held. For each day he stays in the building, money will accumulate in his bank account. Jin-soo continues reading the competition rules, which state that the competition will automatically end when the specified time is up or if any of the contestants die. Finally, he is asked to draw a number from the 8 numbers in front of him if he is interested in participating in the competition. When Jin-soo gets worried about what's happening, he considers taking the small amount of money on the table and leaving. However, remembering his miserable life and the debts he owes, he returns and draws a number from the ones in front of him. He chooses number 3 to be his number in the competition. After drawing the number, he explores the rest of the building, which contains a small hotel with 8 floors. Remembering that he chose number 3, he goes up to the 3rd floor and inserts card 3 into the door, which opens, allowing him to enter his room. Inside, he notices surveillance cameras recording every part of the room. When he sees a delivery channel, he opens it and finds a small notebook containing the rest of the rules. He reads it and learns that he has to take off his clothes and wear the official outfit provided. He also finds out that the money he earns will be displayed on the screen above the delivery channel. He also learns that food and drink are free, but if he wants to buy anything extra, he can do so, but the cost will be deducted from his winnings, and the prices will be quite high. He continues reading the rules, which state that he cannot take food out of the room and cannot obstruct the surveillance cameras. If he breaks any of the rules he has read, half of his winnings will be deducted. So he decides to follow the instructions, takes off his clothes, and puts on the official competition outfit. When he does so, he is surprised by the amount of money he has earned displayed in front of him on the screen. He is very happy, hardly believing his eyes. He starts calculating how much money he could earn if he stays for just 1 day, and discovers that he could earn a huge amount, more than 44,000,000 won. Feeling cold, he uses the communication device to request a blanket. The screen shows that the price is 1,100,000 won, which astonishes him. He tries to order the daily newspaper, and its price appears on the screen as 100,000 won. He then realizes he understands the rules of the game. Although he earns about 30,000 won for every minute he spends in that place, every item he considers buying will cost him 100 times its usual price. Therefore, he decides to forego the blanket and instead buys newspapers and cardboard, which cost only 120,000 won. He sleeps on them until morning. When he wakes up, he is pleasantly surprised to see that he has earned over 14,000,000 won. Suddenly, he hears a woman's voice asking all the people in the rooms of the building to come out and meet each other. When Jin-soo comes out of his room, he notices a girl standing on the water. He asks her how she can do that, and she tells him that the water is fake, a visual illusion created differentiated by lighting. They also discover that everything in this place is a fake replica of the original. The food consists of plastic models, and there are no bathrooms in the entire building. They realize they will need to buy waste bags at a price 100 times higher than usual to relieve themselves. However, the resident of the 7th floor tells them that they cannot return to their rooms until midnight, but they can buy these bags from the delivery channel located in the yard in front of them. The resident of the 5th floor suggests that they should buy something simple first to test and understand the rules. Immediately, the resident of the 6th floor steps forward and orders a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. The delivery channel opens, and he takes the pack of cigarettes and the lighter. Contestant number 1 notices that the cost they pay for items will be deducted from everyone's time. Then the 6th floor resident asks about the end time of the game. 7th floor resident believes that this competition won't last long and will end in a few days. They agree to buy a set of buckets, cans, and tissues to use as toilets. As soon as these items arrive, they grab them and rush to their rooms to use them as bathrooms. After a while, they get hungry and start thinking about food. They ask each other how they will be able to eat in this place. The 1st floor resident mentions that the rules state that food will be provided to them daily for free. He wonders why it's delayed. Suddenly, the 8th floor resident says she ate as soon as she entered her room. The delivery channel brought her 12 meals and 12 bottles of water yesterday. She tasted a bit of each meal and used all the water. Jin-soo tells her that she should have considered the other residents since that food was meant for all of them, not just her, and she should share it with everyone. The 5th floor resident kindly tells her that sharing the food would be a nice gesture. The 2nd floor resident gets angry and orders her to distribute the food. Suddenly, the 8th floor resident takes off her jacket to show them how skinny she is and says that she definitely won't eat all 12 meals. But she can't take the food out of her room because the rules state that nothing can be taken out of the rooms. The 7th floor resident then intervenes, saying that while the rules do state this, there must be a way to divide the food among them. He suggests that it's likely through the delivery channels and asks them to examine the building closely. He believes they will notice that the delivery channels are interconnected in some way. At that moment, a 2nd floor resident asks about the significance of the number 12, noting that there are only 8 of them. So why are there 12 meals? Contestant number 1 says that if each of the residents on the upper floors takes 2 meals, there will be nothing left for him to eat. But the 7th floor resident suggests they discuss how to distribute the food after they find a way to divide. He asks number 8 to put the remaining food in the delivery channel. She goes up to her room and they all follow her. When they enter the room, they are surprised by its large size and the amount of furniture inside. They also notice that she is earning more money than all of them. Resident number 5 says it's unfair because she earns only 50,000 won per minute, while the 1st floor resident says he earns 10,000 won per minute. Here we understand that the building has significant class disparities, just like in real life. The 8th floor resident earns 500 million won a day, an amount that no one living on the lower floors receives. We then flash back to just one night before. We see number 8 getting out of the same car that Jin-soo did earlier. When she enters the hotel, she chooses to stay on the 8th floor. As soon as she enters her room, she changes her clothes, smokes a cigarette, and orders a mattress and furniture for the room. When the food arrives, she eats what she needs and leaves the rest, but she uses all the water that comes with the food, emptying it into the bathtub and soaking in it as soon as she wakes up. Back in the present, number 7 explains how each resident's earnings are determined. Tells them that each contestant receives the total money earned by the residents of the 2 floors directly below them. He explains that this distribution concept is based on a well-known mathematical sequence called the Fibonacci sequence. Number 7 then divides the food equally among everyone, stating that each contestant will get 1 meal and the remaining 4 meals will be placed in the 1st floor residence room. Anyone who feels hungry after finishing their meal can go to the 1st floor and eat there. As they agree on the food distribution method, an unexpected event occurs. Number 8 uses the delivery channel in the yard to buy herself many dresses. This action reduces the time shown on the screen, bringing the competition closer to its end. This means that everyone loses a portion of the money they could have earned if the time had remained unchanged. Contestant number 2 then asks number 8 why she didn't buy the items she wanted from her room. Number 8 replies that if she had bought them from her room, she wouldn't have been able to wear them in the yard. Seeing everyone upset about the lost time due to her dresses, she tells them that she knows a way to increase the time. However, she demands that number 2 apologize apologize for insulting her. After everyone pressures her, she reveals that they all need to climb the stairs together to increase the time. They follow her advice and climb the stairs together. They are scared when they see the time running out on the screen and the screen turning off. However, the screen lights up again and grants them an additional 24 hours. Number 8 is thrilled and declares herself a genius for discovering this method, as she noticed that the time increased when they climbed to her room together. The next morning, they all gather and climb the stairs together to increase the time again. This makes them hungrier and more tired, but no one complains because more time means more earnings for each of them. After a while, number 6 suggests that they distribute the work among themselves. He proposes dividing into 2 teams, with each team climbing the stairs one day and resting the next. The team that climbs will get 2 meals, while the team that rests will get only 1 meal. The team with resident number 1 gets annoyed with him because he limps and can't climb the stairs like them. Therefore, number 6 insults him, calling him a burden to their team. Number 2 volunteers to take his place. The next day, Jin-Soo volunteers to take number 1's place again because it is clear that number 1 is exhausted and his legs can't support him to climb the stairs like the others. At mealtime, number 4 tells number 1 that he must give up his meal to number 3 because number 3 climbs the stairs in his place. However, number 2 intervenes and insists that number 1 should eat the meal, showing sympathy for his leg disability. The next day, number 1 proposes doing a different task instead of climbing the stairs. He wants to be useful to them so that no one feels he is a burden. He offers to collect the bags of their waste on the first floor. They all agree and tell him that his work will be very helpful to them. Later, number 7 stands in front of the time display screen in the yard. When Jin-Soo asks him why he is focused on the screen, number 7 tells him that the time is no longer increasing regularly like before. He also mentions that the increase is no longer tied to climbing the stairs, as sometimes the time increases even when no one is climbing the stairs at all. Suddenly, number 8 decides to leave her team, go to her room. Number 2 tells her that since she earns more money than all of them, she should put in double the effort. However, number 8 responds that she doesn't care about what number 2 says, shuts the door behind her. Despite the rest of the team continuing to climb the stairs and being joined by the other team, the time doesn't increase while they climb. When they decide to rest because they are tired, the time increases slowly. The next morning, they wake up to find that only 30 minutes remain on the time display. They climb the stairs again, hoping the time will increase, but it doesn't. Suddenly, number 4 has a seizure. They decide to help her, but number 6 argues that this will make them run out of time and the game will end. Number 2 rebukes him, calling him inhuman, leading to a fight. At this moment, Jin-Soo tries to reach the communication device to request epilepsy medication. Number 6 knocks him to the ground, but despite this, Jin-Soo reaches the device and requests the medication. Suddenly, they all hear number 8 laughing and asking them to look at the time display. When they do, they see that the time has increased by 40 hours all at once. They then realize that the increase in time had nothing to do with climbing the stairs, start wondering about the real secret behind the time increases. When resident number 7 thinks about what is happening and sees the surveillance cameras everywhere, he tells them that someone must be watching them and controlling the time because they enjoy watching them. We then flash back to the night when resident number 7 arrived at the hotel. We see him choosing his number and going up to his room on the 7th floor. After spending exactly 2 minutes in the room, he discovers that he has earned 420,000 won. He calculates that he will earn 210,000 won for every minute he spends in the game. He decides to buy a pen worth 1,000 won. The screen shows 100,000 won. He realizes that anything he buys will cost 100 times its usual price. After purchasing everything he needs, he sits and explores the room, noting in his journal that there are 14 surveillance cameras in the room. Returning to the present, resident number 7 explains to the others what is happening. He tells them they are in a reality TV show. The other residents are puzzled and ask each other what could be interesting about their boring lives inside the dreary building, which makes other people eager to watch them. Jin-Soo decides to go up to his room on the 3rd floor and talks to the people watching him, promising them a very entertaining show. However, the show is far from entertaining. It simply involves him eating his meal in front of the camera. At that moment, there's a knock on the door. Jin-Soo opens it, finds the 7th floor resident standing there, offering him a cigarette to smoke together. He compliments Jin-Soo on his distinctive and admirable character, noting that Jin-Soo thinks about others and not just himself, as shown when he took the 1st floor resident's place in climbing the stairs and kept the waste bags instead of bringing them down as agreed. However, he brings up the bigger issue on his mind, explaining that the viewers just want entertainment because To them, the residents are merely a source of amusement. Therefore, all the hotel residents need to gather and come up with new ideas to extend their time, which will allow them to accumulate more earnings. Before leaving, he tells Jin-Soo that the other residents might suggest violent ideas for entertainment. Therefore, they should stand against these and propose a kind, non-harmful idea that will still be entertaining and make the viewers extend their time to watch them. In the meeting, the 8th floor resident suggests hosting a wrestling competition among all the residents. Jin-Soo acknowledges that it's an exciting and entertaining idea, but points out that the hotel doesn't have ambulances, which would put them at risk. He then proposes an alternative idea, suggesting they hold a variety show or a comedy performance. Number 8 declines, saying she won't participate in such nonsense. Number 4 volunteers and suggests they could do a dating show among the residents or even a talent show. The 7th floor resident seizes this idea, saying that talent shows aren't hard to prepare and they could start right away, showcase their talents. When he asks if anyone has a talent, no one responds, so he volunteers to start by showing his talent. He requests a flute from the delivery channel in the yard and starts playing it in a very unusual way by blowing air through his nose instead of his mouth. This grabs the attention of the other residents, and even the viewers monitoring them increase the time due to this performance. At this point, number 7 suggests they need to discuss a very important topic and asks when they all would like to end the show. They are all confused, and no one has a convincing answer until number 5 says that this decision should be up to the resident on the 1st floor. They then ask number 1 what amount of money would be enough for him to decide to leave the program. Number 1 thinks for a moment and says he needs 1 billion won. With a simple calculation, number 4 tells him that he would need 75 days to gather that amount. The rest of the residents agree immediately, as they too will accumulate significant amounts of money. For example, number 8 will have accumulated 34 billion won alone after those 75 days. They then return to the talent competition. Number 6 requests 10 tiles to break, and number 2 challenges him by asking for 10 tiles and 4 wooden boards to break as well. Everyone continues showcasing their talents, and with each new and exciting talent, the time increases. Finally, the 7th floor resident announces that the time has increased by 74 hours all at once. He then asks number 8 to present her talent since she is the only one who hasn't participated yet. She replies that her talent is special and can't be shown in front of everyone. She offers to show it to him in her room, but he declines. She then takes the 6th floor resident with her, and as soon as they enter her room, the time increases by 69 hours. Afterward, the 1st floor resident suggests they vote on who will use their room as a waste storage area. He argues that he has contributed to increasing the time with his talent and is no longer a burden to anyone. They all agree to hold a vote. At this moment, Jin-Soo, the 3rd floor resident, becomes nervous because he has contributed the least to increasing the time due to his weak talent, which didn't impress the program's viewers. However, number 7 reassures him, saying they will probably choose the 1st floor resident again due to the class bias against him for living on the 1st floor. He also explains that if people feel there is a dirty place, they won't feel guilty about continuing to throw their waste there. At this moment, there's a knock on the door, and number 4 enters. She says she wants to vote for number 8 because she has the largest room and won't be harmed if they put the residents' waste bags in any corner. Discussions continue among the residents until it's time to count the votes. Number 7 announces that Jin-Soo, the 3rd floor resident, received 3 votes, while the 8th floor resident received 4 votes. 1 resident abstained from voting. Therefore, the waste will be placed in number 8's room, and the rest of the residents will use it as their bathroom. Although Jin-Soo escapes this fate, he is curious to know who the 3 votes against him were. He tells number 7 he is sure that number 6 and number 8 voted for him, and asks if he knows who the 3rd vote was. Little does he know that number 7 himself was the 3rd vote. At night, number 8 refuses to comply with what was agreed upon in the vote and challenges them by sending their meal plates back empty because she controls the food distribution, given that she lives on the top floor. We then flash back to the past, specifically to the moment when number 4 arrived at the building. We see that she initially chose number 8 as all the numbers were available to her since she was the first to arrive. However, she felt unlucky with that number and changed it to number 4. Like the other residents, she discovered the rules of the game and began to adapt to them to earn the most money possible. Back in the present, we see that hunger is affecting all the residents, leading them to reconsider their situation. Jin-Soo volunteers to keep the waste in his room, sparing number 8 from this task. Number 4 also volunteers and offers to take half of the waste in her room, while Jin-Soo takes the other half. The 7th floor resident then decides to go to the 8th floor to apologize to number 8. Tells her that she doesn't doesn't have to keep the residents' waste in her room and begs her to distribute the food and water because they can't continue much longer in this state. Number 8 agrees to his request, and the next day she sends the meals to the other residents through the delivery channel. After this, all the residents respect and fear Number 8, following her orders as they realize their lives are in her hands. She imposes violent games on them, forcing them to fight each other. She makes numbers 2 and 6 enter into a fierce battle watched by everyone. When Number 2 starts showcasing her wrestling and fighting skills, she impresses all the residents. None of them can believe she is so strong as she completely overpowers Number 6, landing painful blows all over his body. However, moments later, she feels pain in her hand, reminding Jin-Soo of how she injured it during the tile-breaking challenge. Number 6 notices this and takes advantage of it, grabbing her injured hand and gaining control over her. He then exacts his revenge, but his retaliation is brutal and cowardly as he hits her face viciously until it's covered in blood. After the other residents manage to pull him off her, he stands under the time display screen celebrating his victory. He tells the residents that the time increased by 50 hours thanks to his triumph over Number 2. Number 8 then commands them to play another game. She asks each person to choose a ball with a number written on it. One of the balls has King written on it. The person who gets the King ball will have the right to command any 2 residents to do anything they request. By luck, Number 4 becomes the queen. She orders Number 4 to harass Number 5. Jin-Soo discovers that he picked the ball with Number 4, and the 5th floor resident is surprised to find she picked the ball with Number 5. Jin-Soo refuses to harass her, subjecting himself to the punishment for disobeying the game's rules. This punishment is an electric shock. When Jin-Soo is electrocuted, he loses consciousness. Upon waking up, he vows to himself that he will follow any command given to him from now on and will not subject himself to the electric shock punishment again, no matter what happens. The next day, the ball game continues. Fortunately for the 4th floor resident, she picks the queen ball again and asks those who picked numbers 1 and 2 to guess whether the coin she has is heads or tails. Unfortunately for the 2nd floor resident, she guesses wrong and gets punished with an electric shock. The following day, the 4th floor resident's luck holds again and she picks the queen ball. She then commands the residents with numbers 3 and 7 to slap each other until one of them surrenders and opts for the electric shock punishment. Since Jin-Soo is the unlucky one with number 7 and he is facing the 2nd floor resident who has number 3, he decides to surrender and take the electric shock punishment. Afterward, number 7 realizes that there is cheating going on in the game and that number 4 has marked the queen ball, allowing her to pick it every time. He decides to expose this secret to the residents of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors. The next day, the 1st floor resident manages to pick the king ball. For the first time, number 8 loses the game, and Jin-Soo takes hold of the electric prod, preparing to shock her. However, the 7th floor resident hits him, snatches the prod, and shocks him instead. We then flash back to the past, showing the 6th floor resident arriving at the building and picking number 6. He then goes up to his room, puts on the official program outfit, requests a pillow from the delivery channel, and sleeps until the next day. Returning to the present, 7th floor resident regains consciousness and finds the 5th floor resident beside him. He also sees the 6th floor resident in front of him, who tells him that the residents have split into 2 teams and he must join them because the hotel and the game are designed for the upper floor residents to dominate the lower floor residents. At the same time, Jin-Soo tries to reach the communication device in the yard but is unable to. Number 2 tells him that the upper floor residents have locked the communication device to prevent them from buying weapons to fight back. The 1st floor resident adds that the 6th floor resident broke into his room and smashed his communication device. This leaves the residents of the first 4 floors in the yard, wondering what the upper floor residents might do to them. At that moment, the upper floor residents come down and stand before the lower floor residents. Surprisingly, the 7th floor resident speaks on behalf of the upper floor residents. He tells them what is required of them for the remaining time in the program, which is 160 hours. He continues speaking to the lower floor residents, saying that from now on, they must maintain the 160 hours as they are. This means they need to add 24 hours to the time display each day. He explains that they can earn this time through entertaining games. However, number 2 objects, saying that earning time was a shared responsibility among all of them. Number 6 threatens her, saying that if they don't comply, they will cut off their food supply and give them just enough to survive. He explains that in exchange for earning time, they will be given coins to buy their meals. The upper floor residents then suggest a game of hide and seek to the lower floor residents. They tell them they will be blindfolded, gagged, or have their hands tied, and they must hide. Those who are found will be beaten, and the last one remaining hidden will be the winner. This game becomes an opportunity for the sixth floor resident to chase and beat the lower floor residents, venting his frustrations on them. When the seventh floor resident sees him getting too violent, he reminds him that the game doesn't require such brutality and tells him that he has already caught 3 of the lower floor residents, meaning the game is over. Since Jin-Soo, the third floor resident, is the winner, they blindfold him, give him a baseball bat, and ask him to hit one of the lower floor residents randomly. The upper floor residents continue to force the lower floor residents to play more games to extend the time. The winners are always blindfolded and made to hit their friends. When the second floor resident wins, she does the same as Jin-Soo, taking the baseball bat and hitting randomly. As the misery becomes unbearable for the lower floor residents, they think of a way to change their current situation. They agree on a plan to gather in the first floor residents' room through the delivery channel to lure and ambush the upper floor residents. They succeed when the first floor resident screams and asks for help, pretending he has a stomachache. When number 6 enters the first floor room, the lower floor residents gang up on him and beat him. When number 8 tries to use the electric prod against the lower floor residents, she's surprised to find that it doesn't work. This is because number 7 sympathized with the lower floor residents and removed the batteries from the prod. Eventually, number 2 manages to punch number 6 in the face, knocking him to the ground. We then flash back to the past, specifically to the arrival of the second floor resident at the hotel. She is the last of the residents to arrive, and since all the numbers have already been taken, she is left with number 2. When she gets to her room and changes her clothes, she starts doing exercises, clearly displaying her fitness and strong physique, revealing that she is a fierce fighter. In the present, the lower floor residents have managed to overpower the upper floor residents. We see them tying up the upper floor residents to ensure they remain under control. After securing them, Jin-Soo feels safe for the first time in a long while. The first floor resident beats up number 6 and stands over number 8, telling her that she builds her happiness on the misery of others and that she is not much different from number 6. Jin-Soo then goes to number 7 and thanks him for removing the batteries from the electric prod, which prevented number 8 from using it against them. He asks him for a reason to justify what he did so he can untie him. Number 7 apologizes for joining the upper floor residents against them, so Jin-Soo eventually frees him. At this moment, the first floor resident announces that they have gained extra time and that the time on the screen has increased to over 190 hours. However, they stand before the screen feeling frustrated, as the upper floor residents will earn exponentially more than they will during this time. Jin-Soo suggests that they should return the upper floor residents to their rooms, but leave the doors open so they can use the rooms as if they were their own. They all enter the 8th floor residents' room and are amazed by the amount of furniture inside. The first floor resident stands in front of the screen displaying the 8th floor residents' earnings and announces that she has over 21 billion won. Everyone is astonished by this enormous amount. At that moment, food arrives through the delivery channel. They sit down to eat hot meals for the first time in the hotel. After eating, the first floor resident suggests that they make use of the money in the 8th floor resident's account. They agree to buy a recipe for making alcohol. When number 5 uses the communication device to request the alcohol recipe, she discovers that it will cost 100 million won. Number 2 removes the tape from number 8's mouth and asks her if she will allow them to buy the recipe. Number 8 agrees but asks to be untied. Number 2 puts the tape back on her mouth and they start preparing the alcohol. When the 5th floor resident tries it, she says it's good and that everyone else should try it too. After drinking and spending the evening together, the 2nd floor resident surprises them by asking how long they plan to stay in this strange hotel. She says she's tired of it and wants to leave and return to her normal life. The 1st floor resident reminds them of their agreement to stay till he collects 1 billion won. The 2nd floor resident immediately responds, saying that if they leave now, she will give him part of her money to help him reach his billion won goal. She continues, saying they need to leave before they lose their humanity and become like the upper floor residents. Jin-Soo objects, saying they need to repay the upper floor residents for what they did to them. She suggests that he go to number 8 and take his revenge, pointing out that she is tied up and can't resist. When Jin-Soo approaches number 8, he finds he can't hurt her because his morals prevent him from doing so. Number 2 then tells them that if they don't leave the hotel immediately, they will lose the remaining shreds of their humanity. Jin-Soo sits with the 2nd floor resident, who tells him she wants to see the sky outside the hotel. He says he wants to leave too, but he won't be able to see the world the same way once he leaves the hotel. The 1st floor resident talks with number 5, saying he misses his daughter very much. She tells him that he will leave soon and will be able to buy her nice things with the money he earns. Jin-Soo states that they agreed to leave the hotel after the time on the screen runs out. He also mentions that they have stopped doing anything to increase the time and are focused on taking care of the tied-up upper-floor residents. Suddenly, the 8th-floor resident asks Jin-Soo to touch her face. He imagines she is evil, bites off a part of his finger, but in reality, nothing happens as he touches her face and his fingers remain intact. That night, the lower-floor residents prepare to leave the hotel. The next day, as they stand in front of the time display screen, waiting for the time to run out so they can leave, they are shocked to see the time increase again. They ask each other what caused the time to increase, with everyone denying any exciting actions. They are forced to go up to the upper-floor residents' rooms to check if any of them had freed themselves and done something unusual. They find all the upper-floor residents in their places not doing anything. Then they are surprised again as the time increases and they hear screaming from the 4th floor. They rush up the stairs to find number 4, who is bleeding from her mouth with a part of her teeth broken. They ask her what happened, and she tells them in horror and panic that she woke up to find herself in this condition. At this point, they all understand the reason behind the increased time. When they ask who could have done this to the 4th floor resident, no one answers, but suspicion creeps into all their hearts. They suspect that the culprit might be one of them. This suspicion grows when they visit the 6th floor resident and discover that someone has removed all his toenails. When they ask him who did it while he was sleeping, he tells them that it must have been one of them. The motive is to increase the time to earn more money. Immediately, the 2nd floor resident suspects the 7th floor resident, saying they should have left him tied up with the upper floor residents because he is as greedy as they are and wants the game to continue forever to accumulate as much money as possible. The 5th floor resident rebukes her, reminding her that without him, they would still be at the mercy of the upper floor residents. At that moment, the 7th floor resident accuses number 2, pointing out that she suspects everyone, but no one has suspected her. He suggests that this would allow her to do anything without being accused. That night, the 2nd floor resident decides to act irrationally and lock the other residents in their rooms. She starts with Jin-Soo, the 3rd floor resident, followed by the 1st floor resident, and then the 7th floor resident. However, she leaves the 5th floor resident free, not realizing she is making a huge mistake. Suddenly, the 8th floor resident comes down the stairs, surprising the 5th floor resident, who asks how she freed herself. The 8th floor resident replies that number 2 released her. Moments later, the 4th floor resident also comes down, saying that number 2 released her as well. The 5th floor resident then decides to check on the 6th floor resident, as he is the only one still tied up. As soon as she enters, she asks him if number 2 came by. He deceives her, saying that she was there and wanted to untie him, but left to get something and would return. He begs her to untie him because he is afraid of number 2, claiming that she was the one who removed his toenails and could kill him at any time because she doesn't like him. 5th floor resident sympathizes with him and hugs him while he continues to plead with her to untie him. We then enter the dream world of the 5th floor resident. In her dream, she wakes up to a voice congratulating her, announcing that the game is over and that they can all leave the hotel and return to their normal lives. She steps out of her room. She sees all the residents celebrating the end of the game. However, she is shocked to find that the 2nd floor resident is missing. When she asks about her, they point her out, and she sees her floating in the air, her face covered in blood. The celebration of the game's end turns into a torture party, where the upper floor residents indulge their sadistic desires on the lower floor residents. Back in the present, the 6th floor resident is still begging number 5 to untie him. As soon as number 6 is freed, he attacks the lower floor residents, tying them up and buying a gun from the delivery channel to threaten them. Before doing so, he thanks the 5th floor resident for freeing him, but he ties her up as well. On the ground before him are the residents of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 7th floors. He sits in front of them and tells them that one of them removed all his toenails except for 2. He demands that they reflect and confess who did it, or else they will all be tortured. The 4th floor resident holds a baseball bat, threatening them as well. She demands to know who dared to break her teeth. Number 6 takes the bat from her and threatens them with it, but they all deny knowing who removed his toenails. He loads a single bullet into the gun and tells them he will play Russian roulette, explaining that he will fire a shot at each of their legs. It's up to luck whether the chamber is empty or loaded with the bullet. He starts with the 2nd floor resident, asking her before pulling the trigger if she knows who removed his toenails. She denies knowing anything again, and when he pulls the trigger, it clicks on an empty chamber. Frustrated, he hits her with the baseball bat. Unluckily for the 7th floor resident, when his turn comes, The gun fires the single bullet, hitting him in the leg. Number 6 then places another bullet in the gun to continue the game. He turns to the first-floor resident and asks if he knows who removed his toenails while he was asleep. The first-floor resident denies knowing, so number 6 prepares to pull the trigger. Suddenly, Jin-Soo speaks up, suggesting to the 6th-floor resident that he can easily find out who attacked him by purchasing the surveillance camera recordings from the day his toenails were removed. Liking the idea, the 6th-floor resident immediately decides to implement it. He asks the 8th-floor resident to purchase the surveillance footage for him. She complies, even though the recordings cost her 100 million won. Once the recordings arrive, number 6 tells number 8 that he wants to watch them alone. However, she refuses, saying it would be more enjoyable to watch them together. When they watch the recordings, they are shocked to discover that the first-floor resident was the one who removed number 6's toenails. He even urinated on his face afterward. Determined to kill the first-floor resident, number 6 heads to the yard, even if it means ending the game. However, number 8 doesn't want the game to end, so she hits number 6 in the back with the electric prod, takes the gun from him, and tells him she doesn't accept his violent methods of control. She then orders number 4 to tie him up. The 8th-floor resident then goes to number 5, tells her that she won't allow anyone to die, as she wants the game to continue and the time to increase. As a result, the time does increase to 149 hours after the thrilling events. Number 8 manages to take full control of the situation. She orders the 7th-floor resident to be treated and moved to his room. Then she orders each resident to be tied up and locked in their rooms, except for numbers 5 and 4, whom she uses to carry out her orders. Sitting in her room, number 8 purchases recordings of the other residents in their rooms and enjoys watching them suffer. To further torment them, she devises new methods of torture, such as depriving them of sleep, watches their suffering with glee. This severe form of torture causes Jin-Soo to hallucinate, see things that aren't real, like the 7th-floor resident talking to him and telling him that all the residents are free and that he is the only one suffering. He sees him dancing with the 8th-floor resident and experiences many other overlapping hallucinations. Meanwhile, number 8 continues to watch the resident's pain and suffering. She tells number 4 that she has strong emotions inside that she needs to express. She paints a large picture inspired by the resident's suffering. Then she buys a small dog from the delivery channel and names it Coco, along with a bag. As number 4 carries out the tasks assigned to her by number 8, feeding the residents and cleaning up their waste, the first-floor resident tells her that she can earn more money than she can imagine. He explains that there is a way to change her room to any other room she chooses, but the method is very expensive. We then flash back to the past and see the first-floor resident when he entered room number 1 and requested to change his room. Immediately, the price to change the room appeared, which was 1 billion won. That's why he asked the other residents not to end the game until he could collect 1 billion won. We then flash back further and see the first-floor resident telling his friends that his daughter was kicked out of the hospital. They are surprised and ask how she could be kicked out while she's sick. He explains that it happened because he is poor and doesn't have the money to pay for her treatment. So he decided to commit suicide so his wife could get the life insurance money to treat their daughter. However, when he stands in the road to get hit by a car and die, the same car that takes residents to the hotel stops in front of him. He receives the same message that was sent to the previous residents and immediately agrees to join the game and become one of the residents. In the present, number 4 returns to serve the tortured residents, but she tells them about the first-floor resident's idea, suggesting that she switch rooms with the 8th-floor resident. She asks them to give her a sign if they agree with the plan, instructing them to wiggle their noses 3 times if they agree. They do. She gets their consent for the plan. They also suggest that they attack her. She tells them that number 8 always has a gun full of bullets and only puts it down when she takes a bath after playing golf. Therefore, if they intend to attack her, they must free themselves during that time. However, she can't free them herself because she is with number 8 during that time. So they all tell her that she needs to convince number 5 to free them, since she is the only one not tied up and won't be with number 8 while she plays golf. Immediately, number 4 talks to number 5 and tries to convince her. Number 5 agrees and promises to do everything that is asked of her. On the designated day, the 4th-floor resident goes to number 8 and asks her to go down and play golf as they do every day. However, number 8 says she is tired, and even the dog, Coco, is lazy. She suggests they take a day off, but number 4 insists that they should fight laziness with activity and go play golf as usual. Number 8 agrees and goes down with her. At the same time, number 5 begins to free the tied-up residents, who are exhausted and weakened from prolonged torture. However, Jin-Soo, the 3rd-floor resident, pulls himself together and decides to help number 5 with her mission. At that moment, the dog, Coco, notices unusual movement on the stairs and starts barking. Number 8 takes notice and follows the dog up the stairs. Jin-Soo and the 5th-floor resident quickly open room number 6 and hide inside. Despite being gagged, The sixth-floor resident makes a noise. Hearing this, number 8 grabs her gun, opens the door, and is shocked to find Jin-Soo and number 5 inside. Just as she is about to use the gun, number 4 hits her on the head from behind with a baseball bat, knocking her unconscious. After successfully subduing number 8, they tie her up, taking away her gun and the electric prod. Number 5 then reminds them that she helped free them and that it's time to fulfill her condition. The residents are puzzled, so number 4 explains that number 5 helped them on one condition, that she gets to exact revenge on the sixth-floor resident in a way that would hurt his masculinity. She asks for a glove and a scalpel, goes up to the 6th floor, where she castrates number 6. Jin-Soo then narrates that they agreed the 4th-floor resident would switch rooms with the 8th-floor resident, and the 1st-floor resident would switch rooms with the 6th-floor resident. The rest of the residents would remain in their current rooms. When the 1st-floor resident contacts the delivery channel to request the room switch, the screen shows that the price for this operation is 1 billion won. He agrees and asks for the room switch to be done immediately. However, to everyone's shock, the delivery channel opens, revealing a red envelope inside. When the 1st-floor resident opens it and reads the contents, he realizes that he has purchased the instructions for room switching for 1 billion won, but the actual switching process has a separate cost. These prices are extremely high, with the cost for the 8th floor room being 340 billion won. At this point, the 1st-floor resident anxiously asks about his fate, as he has spent most of the money he earned and now has nothing left to treat his daughter when he leaves the hotel. Jin-Soo asks the 7th-floor resident to think with them and find a solution, but number 7 is more disheartened than all of them. He recalls the problems he faced in his job as a screenwriter. Before entering the hotel, he remembers when a producer mocked him, saying his scripts were boring and that he would only produce his work if he wrote engaging and entertaining scripts. Number 2 also recalls the oppression faced by one of her colleagues at work and remembers wanting to help him. She suggests to the other residents that they should help the 1st-floor resident. She tells them that each of them needs to donate some money to him when they leave the hotel. She also insists that they need to leave the hotel immediately because they can't handle more disappointments. As they listen to her and follow her lead, the 1st-floor resident grabs number 8's gun and threatens them with it, demanding that they tie each other up. At that moment, number 8 regains consciousness and laughs, telling them she loves this game. She asks them to look at the screen to see the time increasing and their opportunity to earn more money growing. Number 8 then recalls her life outside the hotel, remembering how she tried to convince people that she was an artist and musician, only to be insulted and given coins as charity. This strengthens her resolve to continue in the hotel and accumulate more money. The 1st-floor resident then makes them sit next to each other while tied up, telling them he is going to give them a show they have never seen before. He starts performing stunts in front of them, walking on a tightrope and putting himself in danger to increase the time and earn more money. When he gets engrossed in the performance, he loses himself, bouncing on the tightrope to the extent that he reaches the ceiling and grabs onto a projector mounted there. Moments later, electrical wires touch and cause a fire. The projector catches fire, falls to the ground, and he falls with it, getting burned. Jin-Soo, the 3rd-floor resident, tries to free himself to save him, but can't do it in time. The 1st-floor resident suffers severe burns and needs to be taken to a hospital for treatment. Jin-Soo immediately runs to the communication device and orders the most expensive item available, hoping the time will run out so they can leave the hotel. However, the opposite happens, and the time suddenly increases to 1440 hours. Number 8 laughs nervously, telling them that leaving the hotel has become impossible and that this game could continue forever. Jin-Soo decides to destroy all the surveillance cameras to break the game's rules and end it. He grabs the gun and shoots at each camera until he destroys all the cameras in the yard. The exit door opens, but the 1st-floor resident dies at that moment. When Jin-Soo exits, he discovers that he was in a reality TV show. He finds an envelope containing a congratulatory note for completing the game and a promise to deposit the money he earned into his bank account. However, once outside, his conscience weighs heavily on him for the death of the 1st-floor resident. He attempts suicide, but fails. He mentions that he earned 1.5 billion won, even though the game organizers deducted half of his earnings for destroying the cameras. He considers reuniting with the other residents who were with him in the hotel, so he organizes a memorial for the 1st-floor resident. He is surprised when only the residents from the 2nd, 4th, and 5th floors show up. He tells them that he found the 1st-floor resident's family and compensated them for his death. Afterward, they all part ways, each going their separate direction.